Disney's condemnation of the recent Don't Say Gay bill isn't the first thing they've done to nettle the right wing. In fact, their recent shift towards inclusivity has been met with conservative wrath at each step. Before we can discuss their newest stepping stone to making the company more woke and the far-right's reaction to it, let us take a look at some of their previous shots at diversity. First, we have racist stereotypes disclaimer. Disney, like all production companies at some point in time, has been guilty of overtly racist portrayals, be it the misrepresentation of Native Americans, the exoticization of Arabs, or the dehumanization of black people. It seems that back in the day they were jumping through the hoops to appeal to the radical right, or the radical white, if we're being honest. However, with the help of an advisory council composed largely of people of color, might we add on critical issues, Disney has turned over a new leaf of late. To cement this new chapter in an intensely racist history, in 2020, Disney added a second disclaimer to some of the earliest films of its Disney Plus streaming services. Following its implementation, certain older movies like Peter Pan and Dumbo, as well as the Aristocats and Aladdin films from the 70s and 90s respectively, are now preceded by a disclaimer explaining their racist depictions. For example, before you can dive into Dumbo with its homage to racist minstrel shows targeting the black community, you'll have to sit through an unskippable disclosure that states how the stereotypes with it were wrong then and are wrong now. For those of you who think that it's all performative, we'd like to point out that the disclosure also directs you to a website by the name of Stories Matter. This site provides perspective on why the depictions are negative and is a milestone in Disney's commitment to change. Nevertheless, you're not the only skeptic out there, because some experts, Dr. Herman Shaw, an expert on race and ethnicity in cinema, for instance, was skeptical of this decision as well. Still, Shaw thinks that the disclaimer will provide a great learning opportunity for children of color and white children alike, if it's watched with parents or in an education setting. Next, the updated Disney look. Working at Disneyland might seem like all rainbows and sunshine, but the testimonies of former and current employees say otherwise. That's to say, before it hopped onto the inclusivity bandwagon, Disney had a bunch of sitting rules in place for its employees. Some of these rules applied to the cast members' self-expression as well. For example, they couldn't initially have tattoos or wear their hair in certain styles. However, Disney's recent move towards becoming an all-embracing company has led them to relax their policies on the cast's appearance. Owing to this landmark decision in 2021, cast members can now present in a way that's more gender-affirming for them. As far as tattoos are concerned, employees can now have visible tattoos below the neck, as long as they're not bigger than a standard human hand. As for hair, they can have it styled to suit their gender orientation, provided that they stick to a natural color. So to speak, you can follow in the footsteps of Mulan, but not Cruella de Vil. On the other hand, the rules for nail polish and piercings don't appear to have changed that much. Briefly, while the cast members can have their ears pierced wherever they like, they're not allowed to wear more than 2 piercings at a time. Similarly, even though nail polish is now permitted, it has to be a single color or a French manicure. Another downside to all these rules is they don't apply to any of the costume employees. To elaborate, Cinderella can't have tattoos, and neither can employees who are part of a themed setup. Nonetheless, those working on Disney's cruise line or at one of its resorts can experiment with their costumes to make them as gender inclusive as they like. Speaking of themed setups, they might be revamping one of their most popular ones somewhere in the near future. Then we have the rebranding Splash Mountain. One of Disneyland's most cherished attractions was closed down for refurbishment in January this year. Now, even though Disney has initially planned to overhaul the racist ride to introduce a new Princess and the Frog themed attraction, newer reports have confirmed that it's just a routine renovation and nothing more. For fans who've been out of the loop, the site was to be revamped to fit in Disney's schemes of making the park more inclusive. Since this log flume used sequences from the controversial film Song of the South, a film that perpetuates a negative image of blackness, they were considering replacing it with something in honor of Princess Tiana instead. Now, although the ride has been in full swing since 1989 and continued to enjoy prestige well into the present decade, the film has been pulled from almost all streaming sites, including Disney Plus, despite their ever-growing catalog of black or black-led content. Yes, we are aware that there were petitions demanding that be released for streaming, but thankfully Disney didn't comply. Prestige reminds us that the reactions to the news of this rebranding, or plussing, as the engineers at Disney like to call it, were a mixed bag. While some fans were incensed at the attention it was getting, unlike so many other rides that have been modified in the past, others were happy that its misrepresentation and glorification of the life of a plantation would finally come to an end. All things considered, or whether or not this classifies as a culture war, we really hope that Disney comes through with the Tiana-themed ride. Next is showing disabilities in a different light. Children's television is in the habit of demonizing disabilities, more often than not depicting differently abled characters as villains instead of heroes. However, in recent times, Disney has overcome its tendency to showcase disabilities as a curse. Before you come at us with a pitchfork or dismiss us as textbook snowflakes, hear us out. In earlier films, e.g. Beauty and the Beast's condition is showcased as a curse, and he's freed from it once he's learned his lesson. Although we might not see eye to eye on this, it promotes the idea that if you're different from the common crowd, you're essentially being taught a lesson for some mistake. Imagine how that'd affect differently abled kids. Now that we've made ourselves clear, let us show you how Disney's redeemed itself by giving us a character that celebrates her differences rather than shunning it. Yes, we're talking about none other than Princess Elsa. Elsa, who has the Midas touch only in terms of Ice has been hailed as a good representation of a differently abled person. To elaborate, the film and her character throw a blinding light on how people with disabilities are ostracized from society and what we need to do to make them feel more included. Moreover, it teaches us that disabilities are mostly a lifelong thing, and not something that will go away if you do your daily penance. In fact, it peddles the idea that society needs to adapt to your disability and not the other way around. Still not convinced? Well, if you'd like to read more about it for yourself, fret not. There are plenty of articles out there, and if those don't help dispel your distaste for this theory, you can always read the countless testimonies from their parents of differently abled children out there, most of them agreeing to it being a leap and not a step in the right direction. Now we have diversified films with various races. Now that we've gotten most of the landmark things out of the way, let's quickly take a look at how Disney has diversified its films in terms of representing different races. Whilst Mulan and Princess and the Frog were seen as major missteps, Disney has managed to get back on track with films like Moana. The film that which been described as the perfect princess movie doesn't only dismantle sexist tropes, but also is an excellent portrayal of Polynesian people. As a matter of fact, a lot of Polynesians have described it as a good starting point to help people see who they are. This is a huge improvement on movies like Pocahontas, which tried to put a romantic twist on a historical event that was outright pedophilia and genocide. Besides this film, Disney has promised other films they'll be bringing in more BIPOC characters, including one where Kevin Hart will be playing Santa. In spite of all the blunders in the past, we're very excited about how they take this decision forward. And then we have the condemnation of the Don't Say Gay bill. Last month, Disney finally came out in support of the LGBTQ+ community by declaring its opposition to the Florida government's Don't Say Gay bill. Disney has, in point of fact, vowed that it'll help get the bill, which limits the discussion of sexual and gender orientation in classrooms, repealed. Bob Chapek, the company's CEO, has also come clean about the company's previous homophobic policies while he was speaking about the bill. He's admitted that while in the past Disney has demanded cuts in overtly gay representation, moving forward, they'll be putting out more inclusive content and support the community unequivocally. Although we can't say anything about the future, at present Disney has received a lot of backlash from people over this decision, even from US representatives who've gone to describe it as Disney's alliance to a culture war. Anywho, we genuinely hope that they don't cave in and keep their word to gay fans and employees alike. That's a wrap for this video. See you in the next one.